Michael, we heard a little bit from Trump there, but it must be killing Donald Trump because it seems like all he's really got to do is just keep quiet. But that must be the hardest thing in the world for Donald Trump.
That's a perceptive observation, James. That's what is surprising about this whole post-debate, and that is how disciplined and how relatively quiet he's been. He's apparently got a new deputy communications woman leader who has convinced him to stay more message disciplined. And if he does, I think we're going to see a change in the presidency. The swing states have been added to with Virginia and Wisconsin now swinging over to Trump. I just saw them on Fox before we came on. And if it keeps going like this, the Democrats are sunk. And particularly people who are senators or congressmen are going to be dragged down if Biden is still the candidate.
Now, it should be no surprise to anyone to learn journalists have been covering for Joe Biden for quite some time now. New York Times columnist Moren Dow says a Biden campaign aide contacted her and asked her to remove one of Biden's verbal gaffes from a column that she'd written. Meanwhile, WURD Radio has cut ties with a host who revealed she was fed questions by the White House for Biden's first post-debate interview. Here's what that was all about.
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Michael, I thought the point of post-debate interviews was to demonstrate to all of us that, no, Joe Biden is fine, but if you're hand-feeding journalists the questions you want him to answer and then prepping him, that doesn't really prove that he's fine, does it?
It proves the opposite. Never been impressed with Karine Jean-Pierre. Their whole communications team is hopeless. This is another example of failure to understand the very nature of why people are upset. The only good guy on their team is Kirby, who seems to know at least about military or strategic affairs, but even he's been dealt a bad hand in having to explain Joe's capabilities at the NATO summit. Can you imagine those world leaders going along and discussing future aid to Ukraine with a person who's being openly discussed in the US media as infirm and who will not be even the candidate a week hence?
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Kosha, let's go to the UK, where the Tories suffered an election bloodbath at the weekend. What was your reaction to the UK result, and what changes do you expect to see under Keir Starmer's Labor leadership?
Historic worst ever defeat for the Tories. Everybody was predicting it, and the predictions in this case obviously came true. They obviously have received competition from the left, losing to Labor, and from the right with the rise of the Reform Party, which is only going to continue to be ascendant. And for Keir Starmer's government, same thing. They've got a different, but it's the same side of the coin, or the flip side of the coin, I would say, in that they also have the makings of a lot of unrest and disagreement within the left, as we see in many countries around the world. They've got such a big majority now that there's lots of people from the far left, including his own pal, Jeremy Corbyn, in there, who are going to agitate and push for him to move further to the left. And then also back to reform. While they only got 5 seats, they can play the role of agitator in Parliament, and they did get 14% of the popular vote, so they're only ascendant, and he's going to have to navigate both sides of that as well, on everything from spending to Israel and Gaza, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he walks that tightrope.
But Kosha, Jeremy Corbyn was expelled from the Labor Party, and he's going to have no influence on Keir Starmer, who spent 2 years purging all of these Corbynite pro-Hamas fanatics from the Labor Party to make himself acceptable to the British public. That's why he got 400 seats, because he was so strong. And that's a message for Albo, James, that you keep your nerve, stare down these people, and the great mass of average Aussies will support you. The votes in Queensland and regional New South Wales are more important than in the inner west.
Well, we'll see if Anthony Albanese takes heed of that message.